Mr. President, I'm going to talk for just a couple of minutes about the issue of secret law that Senator Udall and I, we're both members of the Intelligence Committee, have been working on for quite some time, and then I'm going to yield to our friend, the distinguished chair of the Intelligence Committee, Senator Feinstein, for a colloquy. Mr. President, what this issue is all about is I believe there are two PATRIOT Acts in America. The first is the text of the law itself, and the second is the government's secret interpretation of what they believe the law means. And as an example, several years ago, Americans woke up to learn that the Bush administration had been secretly claiming for years that warrantless wiretapping was legal. This disclosure greatly undermined the public's trust in the Department of Justice and our national intelligence agencies, and it took Congress and the executive branch years to sort the situation out. I believe, Mr. President, that the American people will also be extremely surprised when they learn how the PATRIOT Act is secretly being interpreted, and I believe one consequence will be an erosion of public confidence that makes it more difficult for our critically important national intelligence agencies to function effectively. And as someone who served on the Intelligence Committee for 10 years, sitting right next to Senator Feinstein, I don't want to see that happen. Let me yield now to Senator Udall. He will also have brief remarks, any colleagues who want to speak, and then Senator Feinstein will lead us in the discussion of how we will be moving forward. So I want to yield to Senator Udall, who has been an invaluable member of the Intelligence Committee. He and I have worked on this since the day he joined our committee, and I am so appreciative of his involvement.
Senator from Colorado.
I thank the senator from Oregon for his kind words. I also want to echo his remarks about the leadership of the chairwoman of the Intelligence Committee and her focus on keeping our country safe and our citizens protected. I did also want to make the point that, like my colleague from Oregon, I also oppose reauthorization of the expiring provisions in the PATRIOT Act without significant reforms, and I believe it's critical that the administration make public its interpretation of the PATRIOT Act so that members of Congress and the public are not kept in the dark.
Mr. President.
Senator from California is recognized.
Mr. President, I want to thank both Senator Wyden and Senator Udall for their comments. And we did have a meeting last night. We did discuss this thoroughly. And the decision was that we would enter into this colloquy. So I would like to begin it, if I may. These senators and I, along with the junior senator from Oregon, Senator Merkley, and the senator from New Mexico, Senator Tom Udall, and, the senator from New Mexico, Mark Udall, and the senator from Rhode Island, Mr. Whitehouse, met last night to discuss this amendment, the legal interpretation of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act provisions and how these provisions are implemented. I very much appreciate the strong views that Senator Wyden and Senator Udall have in this area, and believe that they are raising a serious and important point as to how exactly these authorities are carried out. I believe we are also all in agreement that these are important counterterrorism authorities and have contributed to the security of our nation.
Mr. President, I have enormous respect for my special friend from California, the distinguished chair of the Intelligence Committee. I have sat next to her literally for more than a decade. We agree on virtually all of these issues, but this is an area where we have had a difference of opinion. I have said that I wouldn't support a long-term reauthorization of the PATRIOT Act without significant reforms, particularly in this area. I am especially troubled by the fact that the U.S. government's official interpretation of the PATRIOT Act is secret, and I believe, Mr. President, that a significant gap has developed now between what the public thinks the law says and what the government secretly claims it says. That is why I and my colleagues from Oregon and Colorado and New Mexico have proposed an amendment that would make these legal interpretations public.
President.
Can you read that, please?
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I be permitted to engage in a colloquy between Senators Udall, Feinstein, and Merkley.
Without objection.
Mr. President, let me say once again that, like my colleague from Oregon, I oppose reauthorization of the existing provisions that we've been debating here on the floor of the PATRIOT Act without significant reforms. I also have to say I believe it's critical that the administration make public its interpretation of the PATRIOT Act so that members of Congress and our public are not kept in the dark. I think that's the important work we have in front of us, and we have a real opportunity to accomplish those goals.
Mr. President?
From California.
If I might respond, I have agreed that these are important issues and that the Intelligence Committee, which is charged with carrying out oversight over the 16 various intelligence agencies of what's called the intelligence community, should be carried out forthrightly. I also believe that the place to do it is in the Intelligence Committee itself. And I have said to these distinguished senators that it would be my intention to call together a hearing as soon as we come back from the Memorial Day break with the intelligence community agencies, the senior policymakers, and the Department of Justice to make sure that the committee is comfortable with the FISA programs and to make changes if changes are needed. We will do that. So it would be my intention to have these hearings completed before the committee considers the fiscal year 12 intelligence authorization bill so that any amendments to FISA can be considered at that time. And the fact is that we do not usually have amendments to the intelligence authorization bill, but the majority leader, I believe, will do his best to secure a future commitment, if such is needed, for a vote on any amendment. I have not agreed to support any amendment because at this stage it is hypothetical, and we need to look very deeply into what these senators have said and pointed out last night with specificity, and get the response to it from the Intelligence Committee, have both sides hear it, and then make a decision that's based not only on civil liberties, but also on the necessity to keep our country safe. And I believe we can do that. I'm very appreciative of their agreement to enter into this colloquy.
Well, I thank the distinguished chair of the Intelligence Committee for proposing this course of action for addressing the secret law issue. Obviously, colleagues would like more information on that, and they're going to be in a position to know that the Intelligence Committee is going to be examining it closely and just going to describe the next steps from there. Senator Udall and I have discussed this issue with Senator Reid, and Senator Reid indicated to us, to the chair and myself and Senator Udall, that we would have an opportunity through these hearings, and of course any amendments to the bill would be discussed on the Intel authorization legislation, and that's a matter that obviously has to be classified. But if we were not satisfied, through that process, we would have the ability to offer an amendment, such as our original one, on the floor, and of course the chair would still retain full rights to oppose it, but we would make sure that if this issue of secret law wasn't fixed and that there wasn't an improved process to make more transparent and more open the interpretation of the law, not what are called sources and methods, which are so important to protect our people, we would have an opportunity, if it wasn't corrected in the intelligence community, to come to the floor. And Senator Reid has just indicated to all of us that he would focus on giving us a vote, if we felt it was needed, on another bill, not the intelligence authorization, before September 30th, so that there is a plan to actually get this fixed. That is what is key, and I think at this time I would...
President.
Senator from Colorado.
As we begin to end this important colloquy, I want to acknowledge the leadership of Senator Wyden on this important matter. I also want to acknowledge the involvement of the Senator from New Mexico, who's presiding at this moment in time, the Senator from Oregon, Mr. Merkley, and the Senator from Rhode Island, Mr. Whitehouse, who've been very involved in bringing this case to the attention of all of us. I want to also thank my good friend from California, the chairwoman of the committee. She's shown great willingness to work with everybody to listen. And I have to say that I expect once the committee examines this issue more closely, that I think many more of our colleagues will want to join us in reforming the law in this area. I think this is important. I do think we can find the right balance between protecting civil liberties and protecting the health and welfare of American citizens.
Mr. President, let me just make one last comment. I also want to express my appreciations to Senator Merkley, who has been an extraordinarily outspoken advocate of our civil liberties and our privacy, and striking a good balance between fighting terror and protecting the rights of our people, and I have so appreciated his leadership on this issue. And let me just kind of sum up. First, I'm very grateful to our chair and pleased with this agreement. The chair has indicated that she believes that those of us who want to reform secret law have raised a serious and important issue. Those are her words. We are grateful for that because we obviously feel very strongly about it. The chair has said that we would hold hearings promptly to examine the secret law issue, give serious consideration to looking at reforms in the FY12 intelligence authorization bill, and then per our conversations with the majority leader, if Senator Udall and I felt that it had not been corrected on the intelligence authorization bill, we would have the right to offer, and certainly the chair could oppose it, an amendment here on the floor of the United States Senate on an unrelated bill. And Senator Reid, to his great credit, in an effort to try to resolve this and move it along, said to the three of us that he would be working to do that. So with that, and again, our thanks to the chair, all my colleagues on the floor, Senator Merkley, who is not a member of the committee, knows an incredible amount about it, and certainly showed that last night in our discussions, was very helpful. I want to yield to him. But, Madam Chair, with the cooperation that you have shown all of us who are trying to change this, and the efforts of Senator Reid to make sure that if we didn't work it out, we could come back to the floor again, I would withdraw the Wyden-Udall amendment for the time being, and it ought to be clear to everybody here in the United States Senate we are going to continue to prosecute the cause of making more open and accountable the way the government interprets this law, and making sure that the American people have the confidence that the way it's being interpreted is in line with the text of the legislation. And I would yield the floor, Mr. President, and would withdraw at this time the Wyden-Udall amendment.